Everyone. Um, Very happy if you have some questions, observations, comments, anything you'd like to talk about this evening. Would you like to know more about good friendship being the whole of the path, or is there some other aspect of the teaching or the meditation you'd like to know about? Feel free to ask.
Well, Paul, may I speak up? It's Andrew.
Okay, Andrew. Okay,
Is that okay? Well, I put it into.
Andrew, sorry, just before you start, what we normally do, just so everyone knows, is we put the thumbs up. Where is it? The react button. Um, there's a react button with a thumbs up, and it just means that I know that you want to talk, and then we can unmute you. Okay, so feel free to ask away, Andrew. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Paul, and everybody. I've been reading in Jackie James's book a bit today about the non-self, and I know it's an important part of the teachings, and I don't know enough about it. So unless anyone else has got anything, perhaps you could just talk to me about the notion of non-self,
Okay.
please.
Yes. You're absolutely right. It's an important part of the teaching. In fact, you could say that it's the absolute fundamental question or aspect of reality that needs the most attention from a mindfulness practice. When we talk about self, what do we mean? We mean that there is some unchanging, permanent aspect of reality that we call me, that is the witness to events and is the reactor and doer of events. And so much of our activity is based around the assumption of this permanent entity that acts in the world, and so much of our time is spent in trying to reinforce that idea, to cement it, to solidify it, to bring it to actuality, some final version of me which is indisputable. However, it's more than that. It's more than just the idea of me operating in the world. It is the assumption that objects possess this same discrete, unchanging aspect. So a car has car nature, a tree has tree nature, a cup has cup nature. There is something indelibly cup in a cup. There's something indelibly mountain in a mountain, tree in a tree, person in a person. Some quality which is unchanging, which is I'm struggling with words here, Andrew. It is an absolute entity which is permanent and unchanging. And the Buddha's enlightenment was the realization that in all cases, whether it's the me or whether it's the absolute car nature of a car or chariot nature of a chariot or a tree nature of a tree, that is a complete illusion. And that what if I could put it in the language that I would use, the Buddha's discovery, and the discovery of anyone who takes this training to its conclusion, is that what we take to be either self or those things belonging to self, contained within the self, or the self being contained within them, or self being the owner of these things, they turn out to be the finite expressions of infinite mystery. There is no self aspect to reality whatsoever. And that is the fundamental misapprehension, what we call the I am conceit, that lies at the heart of all suffering. The misapprehension of thought, conceptualizing, feeling, perceiving, sensing through seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, the whole gamut of conscious experience. The mistake is the assumption of selfhood in those things, where in actual fact, they are all the finite expressions of infinite mystery. And so the purpose of Vipassana meditation is to correct that misapprehension. Not trying to fit your conscious awareness, to fit it to some pre-formatted idea, but to be free to explore the nature of thought, feeling, perception, sound, taste, touch, smelling, sensing, to explore conscious experience in order to see for oneself that all the components that go to make up conscious experience, none of that has self-nature at all. There is no abiding core to anything. This is what we mean by shunyata, emptiness. Doesn't mean that it's a kind of nothingness. It's very full, but it's the appearance of separate, discrete, self-existing entities is illusory, and all those apparent entities are empty of any fundamental substance. And the realization of that is the realization of the infinite mystery. And the realization of the infinite mystery is freedom from suffering. And it's just a question whether somebody, as it were, spiritually licks their lips at that idea, or whether it terrifies them to such a degree that they want to run away. And nobody, this is the beautiful thing about the Buddha's teaching, nobody can convince anyone else that there is no self. The Buddha himself said, Buddhas do but point the way. It's whether somebody has suffered to such a degree, and all their attempts to actualize the self in whatever way, whether it's through religion, politics, philosophy, sensual desire, whatever they've tried to finally overcome suffering and to find genuine, lasting fulfillment in life. And they've tried as many things as they can, and they've all turned up to be void and empty. Then perhaps somebody is willing, not even just to entertain the idea of non-self, but to actually explore their conscious experience in order to find out directly for themselves.
Right. Thank you.
So
Lots to think about.
I think there's something better than thinking. Mindful noting. You will never encompass this through thinking. Thinking is one component of experience. One component of experience cannot encompass the whole. Thinking, you will never thinking will never get you there. The best thing for, in terms of our conceptualizing faculty, is to apply it to wise reflection and to mindful noting.
Okay, thank you.
Now, is anybody else, would people like further elaboration on how it is that there's no self? Or what comes up as a response to the idea that there's no self? Do you immediately go inwardly? Do you immediately start reflecting, so I don't exist then? Or so what's the point in being alive? Or so if there's no self, how come I'm conscious of things and can see things and hear things? What comes up for people? Or would you like to challenge this notion? If you have something you'd like to say, the react button below, you just find the thumbs up button on the react below, and I will quite happily entertain your doubts. Emma, you'd like to unmute yourself, Emma? You'd like to unmute yourself, Emma? Then we can have a chat.
There we go.
There we go.
Unmute. Right. Yeah. So, does it take a lot of meditation, or can somebody, and to realize that, to realize what it is that you have realized, Paul, or is it something that is, I might be able to, or anybody else, grasp in a day? And through working in my job, and suddenly I have that realization, that awakening happens, and there's no going back.
Okay, there's a couple of points there that immediately spring to mind. There is no sudden awakening. It is steady progress. We know we don't. I don't like the word progress. I think it helps to realize that what we're being asked to do is to investigate, examine, explore the true nature of what is actually arising in our experience. So it is not when people talk about awakening, it is not actually a new state of affairs. Nothing has actually changed. It is rather that simply this wrong apprehension, this wrong perception of what this is, that's tainted with this I am conceit. So thought is, it's me thinking, it's me feeling, it's me perceiving, it's me seeing, me hearing. That is, at this moment, that is a false position, and that's what creates suffering. So it isn't that one can never go back. You're already there.
Yeah.
But you, unless you have realized, unless you have gone through the process of this deep examination of experience, then even though you might intellectually consider not self, you actually still experience life in this dualistic way, like through the clinging attachment to the idea of self in thought, in feeling, perception, and so forth. So it's through this ongoing examination of experience that the clouds part, and one sees that actually there is no self in the thought, there is no self in the feeling, there is no self in the perception. and gradually, so the mists of confusion and misapprehension fall away. Now, can anybody do it? Yes. Anybody can, because it isn't about the construction of a new reality. It is just the conscious exploration of reality as it already is. So anyone can do it. Few in any one generation do, because of the degree of attachment they have to the world and to things and to themselves. And that's why I said to Andrew, you have to have reached a point where you realize that nothing else is going to work. And then the question of time becomes somewhat mute, because who cares how long it takes? The journey itself is deeply fascinating and is hugely rewarding. If one persists with the practice of mindful noting, there can only be one conclusion: that someone becomes enlightened. The Buddha himself said, he gave this incredible analogy, if that's the right word. Whoever munches, crunches, eats, drinks, as a consequence, they have to, I'm trying to find a euphemistic way of putting it, but they have to answer the calls of nature. In the same way, if someone repeatedly attends to the mark of transience through mindful noting of every object that arises in consciousness, then eventually they become enlightened. It's inevitable. So it doesn't actually matter how long it takes. And how long it takes is dependent on so many individual conditions.
Yes.
So, for instance, in the Pali Canon, the Buddha's 5 attendants, his first students, after he became enlightened, they heard 2 discourses. They attended to their experience while they were listening to those discourses, and at the end of 2 discourses, all 5 were enlightened. So it doesn't really matter, though, as long as the intention is to practice mindful noting of whatever arises. Eventually you see it all for what it is. Does that cover it, Emma? Was there a follow-up question?
Yeah. I think part of me is considering kind of like taking it up much more seriously. Like I've for a long time thought of giving away everything, my possessions, my whatever. Maybe it's something I need to come and talk to you about, but and take it much more deeper and further.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. We don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It does depend on our personal circumstances, but the higher it comes in one's priorities, the more chance of completing the job in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And if somebody does have the personal conditions to place it higher in their priorities, I mean, the very best thing for anyone to do is to come in for full-time training. That's what I did. Then you meet with the best possible supporting conditions. Failing that, if people have responsibilities in the world, then meditating every day, developing mindful noting in as many areas of their life as they can, listening to the Dharma, joining Zoom meetings, coming on a Wednesday at the House of Inner Tranquility, and of course, attending retreats at the center, you will get the job done. You will get the job done. And people have made great strides. And it's not about being a holy Joe, and it's not about being special. There's just has to be the genuineness of the approach. Genuinely want to know, genuinely willing to accept some instruction, accept some guidance, and work at it steadily. All things are possible. Absolutely.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Emma. I think Mandy was next. Mandy, nice to see you.
Hi, Paul. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
I had experienced something today which made me very sad, and I am wondering how to approach this then with the mindfulness and the Buddhist teaching. And yeah, it was a story that really touched me, and it was about a boy who was molested this weekend by 20 men because he had a colored skin, and it was really bad. And he came to me to speak to me, but and I also noticed that it struck me that I was more that it's that I felt this more difficult to process than even the things that happen in Gaza. You came maybe because I don't know. It was very hard to accept this with my Buddhist mind. And I kept on thinking about this the whole day. I couldn't also relate this to the karma, and yeah, find it really
You
hard. So
couldn't.
maybe you can help me there.
You couldn't relate it to the nature of action and result.
Can you please, yeah, elaborate a bit about this? Because yeah,
But
I'm a bit surprised you say this.
what say what?
Well, I know he's just in the wrong place at the wrong time with his colored skin, and that's not, has nothing to do with the karma. But also, I remember that you were telling
Yes, it does.
things about, yeah.
Like my appearance in this scheme of things is entirely down to my past actions. And the supporting conditions I've met with in my life have absolutely propelled me along a path of reflection on the nature of suffering and the desire to be free of suffering.
Hmm.
And so, from a Buddhist perspective, I'd point out that that would be true of everyone, whether they're conscious of it or not. And the effect of that is it enables me to accept the reality of the human realm. The human realm is vicious, and people are vicious in their ignorance, in their failure to understand that we are all finite expressions of the infinite mystery. And as a consequence, people do horrible things to one another. And so, reflecting on the Buddha's teaching in that way, I surmise or I conclude that there is immense value in following a spiritual teaching, especially one that says that good friendship is the whole of the path, good friendship with other people, good friendship with the things of the world, good friendship with one's own mind. And that to live a life of relative harmlessness is the way to go, because I cannot stop the human realm being the way the human realm is. But I can, in my role as a practicing meditator, I can uncover the roots of greed, hatred, and delusion in my own nature, which are the roots of all the horrible things that people do to one another in the world. And so I know my actions have results, and therefore I choose as best I can to act wisely. Do I always get it right? No, of course not. But overall, there is a preponderance of skillful action over unskillful action, and gradually one finds one lives in a more harmonious way with life, and therefore one is being harmless in the world, relatively speaking. Because I can't stop the world from being what it is. So I employ every aspect of the Buddha's teaching. It helps me make sense of the world. It helps me make sense of why it is that people behave in the way that they do, and I can retain my compassion both to the victim of a particular incident and the aggressors and the oppressors in that very same incident. Because I see that I'm a human being too, and they're human beings too. And they are finite expressions of the infinite mystery. But this is the nature of the human realm, and people have to learn their lessons. So where we stand is slightly different. You're rejecting reality, and therefore you're consumed by what's happened. Whereas it is possible to be able to be accepting of it and retain one's compassion and retain one's equanimity, if you choose. Sorry, Mandy, you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, I've also been thinking about that how, I don't know, keeping the compassionate response, or not keeping, but having it, experiencing it at the same time, having this acceptance kind of mindset, and I find that hard as well. So I noticed I already was feeling compassionate with also the um, what is it, the one who
Perpetrators.
caused it, yeah. uh, which maybe I even know this boy who did it. So I felt compassion with him, but then I also, when I then I also feel this is a rational mindset, and I feel less connected then at that moment with my emotions, and I felt that very hard. I don't know if
Why
you.
would you not be in, like, the whole purpose of practicing mindful noting is to be in touch with your emotions. We want to know. We want to know exactly how we feel about a thing when it's arising, in order to see that whatever it is transient.
Hmm. I start to rationalize things then, maybe more, because I start to understand, you know,
I
why
think
these.
that's the problem, not the solution. I think if you practice mindful noting, then you know directly how you feel. You know directly the true nature of feelings, of mental formations, of cravings, of hatreds, of desires, of all kinds of things. And when we say we try to rationalize it, what do we mean? We mean we want to think about it more.
Mm,
We don't need to think about it more. We need to practice mindful noting.
that's an interesting thing to think about.
Don't think about it.
No,
There's nothing to think about. Just practice mindful noting.
yeah, yeah,
Thinking won't get us anywhere other
no,
than if it's wise reflection. It's wise reflection that gets us to practice mindful noting.
yeah,
And mindful noting utilizes that part of our minds, the inquiring part. But we try to rationalize because we're trying to find a solution for something for which there is no solution.
that's what happens. And I
Yeah.
start to avoid the pain and the sadness and the feelings that I felt, of course.
Why are we
Yeah,
trying to avoid
I know.
feelings of sadness? If we avoid feelings of sadness, we cannot know that sadness is transient, ungraspable, and not self. So that the training can't happen if we're trying to rationalize the world. If we accept the world that it has these elements to it, it has these vicious elements to it, and that yes, there is sadness when we look at the world and what people have to go through. So this is what I mean about good friendship with our own minds. So we can't be in denial about how the way we feel. There's no solution in that. It's learning to acknowledge the way we feel and then observe the way that these things come and go If it comes and goes, it can't be the self, because the one thing we know about the self is that it does not change over time. So if it changes, if an emotion comes and goes, it isn't actually, it's not me, it's not mine, it's not the self. So we have to be open. We have to be willing to acknowledge what's really there. And the more we come to an acceptance within ourselves and our own nature, then you find it's so much easier to accept that the world is the way it is. The more we're going, well, I can't experience it, I shouldn't experience this, and dampening down, and blah, 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 we start projecting that outwardly and saying, well, they shouldn't be behaving like that. That shouldn't be happening either. We start projecting it outward. And so
I guess that's a big part of it. Yeah. There was a lot of resistance and trying to wanted to act, to do something right, or to solve this.
Yeah.
Or to stand up for something, the injustice that has been done. Yeah, my mind was going.
There we have the clinging attachment, justice, justification, condemnation. It's the resistance and wanting life to be different has gone through enough iterations that it's now formed this rationalization, this view structure about something has to be done, this has to be done, that has to be done. But we've got to start with ourselves. You won't solve the injustices of the world. You will not. And are we absolutely sure we really know exactly what has happened and why? Do we know all the intricacies, all the infinite number of conditions that go to make up any experience whatsoever? And one of the things that I've discovered is how little I actually know. Really, I know nothing. And so the idea that I could formulate some way of creating justice in the world, and this is why I come back to my original point, it's like, well, there's this law at work called the law of action and result. And like, I don't have to solve it all. I don't. I never could. And for somebody to believe that they could, that really has to be reflected upon.
No, I was just thinking maybe I could do something at least.
Well, what did I say that I did? What did I say that I did and continue to do? I tried to make myself as harmless as possible. That's something you can do.
But I can do more, can I not? Okay, yeah.
But you're coming to me with your unhappiness about this situation.
Yeah. 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 And how to explain this to myself.
You don't need to explain it to yourself. Yeah. Why does somebody need to explain it to themselves?
I guess that's what it is about. Yeah.
Just practice. Honestly, just, that would be my guidance to anybody. Practice mindful noting. Let the sadness be there. Let the sense of injustice be there. Note how it arises due to conditions, and when the conditions change, it disappears. Practice loving kindness. Practice compassion meditation. Keep precepts, keep them as well as you can. Be generous, be thoughtful, be kind with your time, with your energy. Help people out. But it can all come from a place of acceptance that the world is the way the world is, that it's not your job to make it different than it is.
That is a difference in the need. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
Thanks, Mandy. I mean, yeah, absolutely food for thought. Absolutely. I mean, I talked about in the last newsletter, the editorial was somebody accosting me on our open day, demanding to know what I did to help the world. And I told her, I try to live as harmlessly as possible. I work at uprooting and eliminating the greed, hatred, and delusion in my own nature, which is actually the cause of all the problems in the world. And it's really amazing that somebody would actually, in that sense, attack when they're demanding that the world should be at peace and we should all work towards peace, and then you've got people who are actually at peace and they're attacking them. It's like ludicrous. Because everyone thinks you have to stand on street corners with placards, and that's just performative. Doesn't make any difference whatsoever. But somebody who actually is willing to go into a deep exploration of conscious experience and go through all the hard work and all the difficulties of facing up to their attachments and dissolving those attachments through the development of insight wisdom, they are doing something. And it's not performative. It is making a real difference. But the thing is about making a real difference, the thing is about dissolving the roots of greed, hatred, and delusion from your nature is no one will notice you. You'll become invisible to them because you're just like, just walking about and not hurting anything, and you're not getting in anyone's way. You're just like chilled out, and they do you because you're not being performative. You're not making a grand gesture. You're just living your life peacefully, happily. And it appears the people that most demand that the world should be peaceful don't like that. Leslie, sorry, you've been waiting patiently.
What can I say? It was taking us back to the self, the concept of self. But what you've done is you've actually answered the question in a roundabout way, because when it comes to doing the meditation, when it comes to sitting and just being mindful, there is this awareness of the observation of the observation. I'm watching myself, not trying to watch myself, but the more I try to not watch myself, the more I am watching myself, and around and round in circles. And then you suddenly realize that I've got to stop watching myself. So you stop watching yourself, and then you become aware again that you are still watching yourself, but from a different perspective again. And so it goes on and on. And then it's the realization that you just have to you have to let go. But then the more you try to let go, you're then locked in trying to let go, as opposed to watching the self. It's the letting go of the not letting go. And so it goes on and on. And yes, it gets very much a case of, yes, I'd love to let go, but I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to be letting go of.
Oh, Leslie. Oh, the labyrinth. I mean, it's infinite regress, isn't it? And this is what happens when we try to think our way there. So what has to happen really there is just the willingness to include those kinds of thoughts as mental objects. Because at the moment you're identifying with them as being me or mine, it is a commentary which is apparently kept outside of the arena of mental noting and isn't included. The moment you include it, there's the possibility of recognizing that these thoughts are arising due to conditions and their nature is to arise and pass away. The content of the thinking is irrelevant. It's this sort of thought out labyrinth. Whereas you could just be noting, you could just be mindfully noting. And it's because of this tendency to want to problem solve, to solve the problem of meditation, to think our way to enlightenment. And it's a rite of passage. This is your particular issue. It's where, you know, other people will have theirs. This is yours, and it's your willingness to include these thoughts as meditative objects, so you're not in denial of the thoughts arising. However, you don't take them seriously. Like when there's a bird singing outside when we're meditating, we don't take its whatever it's tweeting about, we don't take it seriously. We don't start saying, is that bird talking about me? We just acknowledge that there is birdsong. So the question is, Leslie, if you were to note that kind of thinking, what would you note it as?
Worry.
Okay, there you go. And that is literally all it is. Because thinking cannot encompass the whole. Thinking is one element of experience. It will never succeed in encompassing the whole. And so you let go by including it as a meditative object, giving it a label, worry, in this instance, observing how it's trying to solve a problem, how it's trying to gain certainty. I know where I am, I know what I'm doing, all that. And allow that discomfort of not knowing where you are and not knowing what's going on. Allow that uncertainty and the discomfort of that uncertainty to be there, in order to be able to see that all of it is transient and none of it defines what's unfolding. Now, I mean, I make it sound simple, but there's nothing simple when you're attached. It's the attachment to it that's the issue.
Yeah.
And so we fight and and that's why I mean it's a rite of passage. You have to go through what you have to go through in order to reach the serenity and the peace and the equanimity of literally just mindfully noting what comes up without trying to solve it, without trying to get somewhere. And then it's possible to see that, yes, there is an object, and there is the knowing of the object, and then there is the knowing of the object. And one sees that it all arises due to conditions and ceases. And there's no self in any of it. He'll come. But obviously, you've got to work your way through this particular hindrance.
Yeah.
But that's the way to do it, is to include it, label it, and divest it of the importance that you currently attach to it.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Okay. Great questions this evening. Wonderful questions. Jason, hello.
Hi, Paul. Hello. I just had a thought. I don't know what you think about this, but when Mandy was talking about justice, and I was just thinking, if someone feels that life is unfair, in a way, that's sort of saying there isn't action and result. It's sort of, it seems to me it's one or the other. And that, and then in the way, the law of karma is the ultimate justice, and it's at a much deeper level than we might be able to see from the information we have. So a sort of trust that there already is justice maybe might make it easier to not feel that I have to impose my version of justice.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally why I started with, there is action and a result. And to reflect on that enables you to let go of this idea that you have to solve,
Yeah.
you know, these issues, because we do not. The information we have is being curated, you know, heavily edited, the information that we receive about the world. And it's not the world I live. The world on TV, the world that the information that we're given through the media is not the existence that I live moment by moment, day by day. So we've just got to reorder. And this is the beautiful thing about mindful noting. The mindful noting will do the reordering. And it's just having the faith and the confidence to allow that reordering to happen quite naturally. So yeah, absolutely, point taken. As I like to say, life is uneven, but it is fair when you take into account the nature of action and result. And it is a complex subject. There are levels and levels to the complexity of how actions and their results are experienced. People can, if they want, they can get into the Abhidhamma and start, you know, delving into the science of action and result. But to put it at its simplest, if you act unskillfully with self-view to the fore, so you're acting selfishly, and so acting out of greed and hatred and delusion, your pain will increase. If you act with relative unselfishness, generosity, kindness, thoughtfulness, and so forth, and meditation, then as a consequence, you will experience pleasant results. And we're all an admixture. And none of us know what we've been up to in the past, the long past. And all it requires is the right supporting conditions to come together, and a result comes up. And so we're placed in a trying situation and experience lots of painful feelings. And then we go, yeah, oh, what have I done to deserve this? Well, something. It'll take the mind of a Buddha to be able to, you know, properly untangle it all for you. But you've clearly done something. And when the, you know, the good times roll in and life is very pleasant, and, you know, we don't even stop to actually consider that that might be the result of our positive actions. We just think, oh, life's normal now. So yeah, so it pays to do a little bit of wise reflection, remind ourselves when faced with this information, reinforcing. Remember, they have, you know, the media has a vested interest in giving you the bad news rather than the good news, because it keeps you glued, keeps everyone glued. So you're being given a heavily slanted view of reality. And it's not even the life that you experience. Yeah, so the willingness to reflect on that and reflect that, oh yeah, people are experiencing the results of their past actions. We cannot know the ins and outs of it. That doesn't for one moment deny the possibility of feeling compassion. And compassion is the wish for people to be free of suffering. So thanks, Jason. Was there anything else?
Thank you. No, that. Thank you.
Okay, Joe has asked, can you talk about dealing with anxiety during and outside of meditation and how it relates to self, no self? Yes, of course. Remember that meditation is like your workout in the gym. When we work out in a gym, we get to use the results of our workout, our increased strength in our muscles and so forth, and we get to use that strength and those muscles outside of the gym. So in the same way, if we're practicing mindfulness and we're mindfully noting in meditation, we practice mindful noting, more and more you start to recognize the things you see in meditation are exactly the things that you get up to in your life. So it reaches a point where there really is no discernible difference. So in meditation, you've got the perfect situation to allow states like anxiety to be there. That's what we're learning to do, is to accept what comes up, to rest in the moment, content to note whatever arises. And so if it is a deeply embedded habit of, in this case, anxiety, it's learning to allow that discomfort and the whatever thought processes, whatever feelings, physical sensations there might be, it's to allow that in the safety of the meditative environment. That is the best place to be able to do this exploration of the nature of anxiety. It can be helped tremendously if you practice loving kindness, if you practice keeping precepts, if you practice developing the parami, generosity, kindness, thoughtfulness, giving one's energy to other people. If you're willing to do all those things, that helps tremendously to create a supporting condition of a relative lack of self-concern. Anxiety is maximal self-concern. And what tends to happen is that it's not just the anxiety, it is your relationship to the anxiety. It is the belief that this anxiety should not be here, or, oh, here I go again doing the same anxiety. So it becomes resistance squared. Anxiety is a resistance, and then we exacerbate it tremendously through the resistance to the anxiety itself. So meditation, along with keeping precepts, developing the parami, developing loving kindness, good friendship with one's own mind, allowing, like having a clear comprehension that the anxiety is an issue and that the meditative environment is the very best place to undergo this exploration of anxiety, if it comes up, when it comes up, rather than going, oh, I hope there's no anxiety comes up in this meditation. You have to be willing to accept your nature. That's what good friendship with yourself, with your own mind is. It's having the self-compassion to realize, yeah, you do have a shadow side, like we all do, and that's fine. And here's my opportunity to really look at this. And it's through the willingness to remain with those feelings, with those sensations, with those thoughts, with the strong urge to get rid of them, and recognizing that it's the attempt to solve the problem of anxiety, which is the issue. And that if you leave it unresolved, what happens? What happens if I don't try to solve the problem of anxiety? What does it do next? Because it's reliant on my resistance for its existence. And if I'm no longer resisting it, if you look at it, you see that it's just unpleasant feeling, certain kinds of physical sensations and thought processes. What else is it? It hasn't got any other qualities. That's just all it is. So what happens if I'm no longer trying to solve it? And the difficulty is someone actually identifies themselves as someone with anxiety. And so not attempting to solve the anxiety and allowing all those sensations, those feelings, those thought processes to dissolve is a threat to self-fear. So somebody keeps it in being, because by keeping it in being, they get a sense they know who they are, even though it's so uncomfortable. But the more you are willing to rest with what comes up in meditation, and you're willing to remain with the discomfort, with the physical sensations, with thought processes, and watching them come and go, and it's bedded, it's cushioned by all the other bits of the path that you do, like keeping precepts, loving kindness, generosity. Over time, you start to recognize that anxiety has no concrete core. It's just a set of transient components that arise and pass away due to conditions, and there is nothing to fix. There is nothing to solve. And that, weirdly, is real, true action. So, Joe, I hope that helps. Again, like Leslie, this is going to be, this is your thing. You might as well embrace it. This is, this is your spiritual path. Coming to understand the true nature of anxiety, to understand that there's nothing really there, nothing of substance, nothing solid, definitely nothing you have to fix. You gave me a thumbs up, so I hope that.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. Very helpful.
Okay,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Right. Peter asked, what is the difference between thinking about something and wise reflection? Well, that's a good question. What constitutes wise reflection, as opposed to just thinking about stuff? Well, when we say just thinking about stuff, actually what we mean is trying to solve things, isn't it? Really. Because, like, I mean, I think the question probably stemmed from, did it stem from what we were talking about first of all? Wise reflection. Oh, this is the example I always use of my own wise reflection. Going into my teacher, I had something to ask him, and he gave me this look, which was like, almost like, what on earth are you doing? It's that kind of look. So we had the conversation about whatever it was about, and I walked out of the door, stairs leading up from his office. I took one step, and I said, why is Alan being like that to me? And I took another step, and I said, no, wait, that's not the right way around of looking at it. What is it that I'm doing that gets that response from my teacher? That's the difference between thinking and wise reflection. Because in that moment, I then looked at my mental states and I saw, oh, I was running ill will. Now, the irony of this is, much, much later, I sort of mentioned this to Alan as an example of wise reflection. And whilst agreeing with it, he pointed out that he had no idea about any of it. It was all in my mind. He wasn't giving me a funny look at all. I just saw it as such. And yet from that, it got me back to mindfully noting my mental states, because that's wise reflection. If it's wise reflection, it brings you back to mindful noting. It brings you back to the spiritual path. Wise reflection gets you back to the aspiration of wanting to overcome suffering. And if it's just thinking, it doesn't accomplish that goal. So, is that okay, Peter? I'm getting the thumbs up. Yeah. So it is very much about our relationship to the idea of self, because so much of our activity, and that's what we discover in meditation, so much of our activity is about trying to reinforce the idea of self. Whereas the true path is about examining the true nature of conscious experience to test whether that assumption is actually valid or not. And it turns out from experience that the more that there are times that you experience life without any self-concern whatsoever, and they're always the happiest times of your life. And then there are other times where self-concern is maximal and all-encompassing, and that's when you're most miserable. And there is this natural preference for a lack of self-concern. And as you go deeper into the insight knowledges and you start dissolving all the misperceptions and misapprehensions, and you start to experience more and more of the infinite mystery, and what you had previously taken to be self, you now see as just the arising of the infinite mystery expressing itself through these finite conscious experiences. And the more you start to get a sense of the true nature of reality, which is sublime and flows and is beautiful. And yes, it does contain all the viciousness of the human realm and the viciousness of the animal kingdom, but it also includes all the beautiful sunsets and the astonishing autumnal sunsets, and it includes it all. It's all part of the infinite mystery. And suffering is a necessary component, because it's through suffering that people finally reflect wisely and choose to head towards the infinite mystery and out of self-view. Okay. One more comment. Oh, just a thank you. All right. I think we're there for this evening. I hope some of that was helpful. Don't take my word for it. Practice mindful noting and find out for yourself. Okay. Until we meet again.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank
you, Hilda.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Not at all.
Thank you.
See you all again soon.
Thank you.